Act as if nothing is impossible. Not tomorrow, not when the money comes, not when the doctor confirms it, not when the world agrees with you. Act as if nothing is impossible now. The greatest prison is not the one built of steel and stone. It is the one built of assumption. You do not live in a world of facts. You live in a world of beliefs hardened into experience. What you consistently assume to be true, you experience as reality. Therefore, when you accept impossibility, you do not merely observe it, you create it. You have been taught to bow to circumstances. You have been conditioned to say, "This is just the way things are." But circumstances are not creators. They are effects. They are shadows cast by inner states, and shadows cannot move unless the object that casts them moves first. You are that object. Nothing is impossible because the source of all possibility is within you. The imagination is not a fantasy machine. It is the workshop of reality. Every invention, every relationship, every achievement existed first as an imaginal act before it became visible fact. The world you see is a delayed echo of what was once imagined and felt to be true. When you act as if nothing is impossible, you shift from being a victim of life to being its author. Most people try to change the world by force. They fight circumstances, they argue with facts, they analyze limitations. But the one who understands the law knows that the outer world rearranges itself to match the inner assumption. If you persist in the feeling that your desire is already fulfilled, the world has no choice but to conform. Not because of magic, because consciousness is the only reality. If you assume something is impossible, you give life to that impossibility. If you assume it is done, you give life to fulfillment. The world does not ask whether your assumption is logical. It asks only whether it is dominant. The dominant feeling wins. So what does it mean to act as if nothing is impossible? It means you refuse to consult appearances for permission. It means you dare to feel successful before success appears. It means you walk with the inner conviction of one who already possesses what others are still praying for. You do not wait for evidence. You become the evidence. The person who says, "I will believe it when I see it," remains a servant of delay. But the one who says, "I see it within, therefore I believe it," becomes the master of manifestation. Sight is not the proof of reality. Feeling is. If you desire abundance, do not merely hope for it. Enter into the state of the one who has more than enough. Feel the relief of bills paid. Feel the generosity of giving without fear. Feel the quiet confidence of financial security. Do not ask how it will come. That is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to occupy the state. States are the true cause of events. When you change your state, you change your destiny. If you desire love, do not chase people. Do not beg for attention. Become the one who is already cherished. Walk as the chosen one. Speak as the adored one. You are not attracting love, you are embodying it. And the world must mirror the state you consistently occupy. The mistake most make is this. They imagine for a moment and then return to doubt. They feel powerful in meditation and powerless in daily life. But acting as if nothing is impossible requires persistence. It requires loyalty to your assumption, even when the outer world denies it. The world may whisper, "Be realistic," but realism is merely agreement with past assumptions. If everything you see today is the result of former thoughts and feelings, then what you call reality is only yesterday's imagination crystallized. Why then should you bow to it? Why should you worship a shadow? Dare to assume greater. Dare to assume boldly. You are not here to react, you are here to create. Imagine a person who desires a position of influence. If he continues to see himself as overlooked, he remains overlooked. If she continues to feel unqualified, she remains unnoticed. But the moment they assume the feeling of importance, the world begins to reorganize. Opportunities appear. Conversations shift. Doors open. Not because the world suddenly became kind, because consciousness shifted. Acting as if nothing is impossible does not mean reckless behavior. It means guarding your inner conversations. Every time you replay failure in your mind, you rehearse limitation. Every time you argue internally about why something cannot work, you fortify impossibility. But when you revise your inner dialogue, when you speak inwardly as one who already has what they desire, you rewrite your future. Inner speech is creative power. If you desire health, stop identifying with illness. Stop telling the story of pain. Stop rehearsing the diagnosis. Instead, feel what it would be like to wake with strength. Feel the ease of movement. Feel the gratitude of vitality. Do not deny the current condition, simply refuse to give it creative authority. The state you persist in is the one that materializes. You may say, "But I have tried. I imagined. Nothing happened." Look deeper. Did you truly assume it was done? Or did you imagine and then check the mirror every hour for change? Did you feel it real? Or did you treat it as a hopeful exercise? Feeling is the secret, not emotion in the sense of excitement, not forced enthusiasm, but the quiet knowingness that it is already yours. When you order something online, you do not worry every minute about whether it exists. You assume it is on its way. You adjust your expectation accordingly. You make space for it. You speak of it as coming. That calm certainty is the state required. Act as if your desire is already on its way. Better yet, act as if it has arrived. Walk differently. Speak differently. Think differently. If nothing is impossible, then the only barrier is the one you accept internally. And you have been accepting smallness for too long. You have been negotiating with doubt. You have been entertaining fear as if it were wisdom. Fear is merely faith in the unwanted. Redirect that faith. If you can imagine failure vividly, you can imagine success vividly. If you can anticipate rejection, you can anticipate acceptance. The same faculty is used in both directions. The question is, which direction will you choose? Acting as if nothing is impossible demands courage. Not outer courage, but inner defiance. The defiance that says, "I will not allow appearances to dictate my identity." Identity is everything. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are conscious of being. If you are conscious of being unlucky, events confirm it. If you are conscious of being favored, life conspires accordingly. Change the concept of yourself. See yourself as capable. See yourself as chosen. See yourself as blessed. Not arrogantly, but naturally. The way a king knows he is king without shouting it. The way the sun shines without asking permission. When you awaken to this truth, you realize that impossibility is not a law of nature. It is a habit of thought. Break the habit. There will be moments when the old state tries to reclaim you. Circumstances may intensify before they dissolve. Do not interpret that as failure. Often the old assumption surfaces one final time before giving way to the new. Persistence is not forcing the outer world. It is remaining faithful to the inner vision. Close your eyes and construct a scene that implies your desire is fulfilled. Keep it simple. Keep it short. Feel it real. Repeat it until it feels natural. When it feels natural, it will externalize. Naturalness is the key. If your desire still feels distant, you have not yet fully occupied the state. Continue. Do not strain. Relax into it. Allow yourself to experience it inwardly as if it were memory rather than fantasy. Memory feels real. Treat your desired future as memory now. Imagine someone congratulating you. Imagine the environment around you, the textures, the sounds, the expressions. Then fall asleep in that feeling. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between imaginal experience and physical experience when the feeling is vivid, and what is impressed upon the subconscious must express itself. Act as if nothing is impossible, because, in truth, it is not. The only impossibilities are those sustained by collective belief. But you are not required to accept collective belief. You are an individual center of consciousness. You can choose differently. When the world says, "It's too late," you say inwardly, "It is already done." When logic says, "It cannot happen," you answer silently, "It has happened within me." When doubt whispers, "Who do you think you are?" you respond, "I am the one who decides." This is not arrogance. It is alignment. You are not trying to become powerful. You are. Recognizing that imagination itself is power. The creative force of the universe flows through awareness, and awareness is what you are. If nothing is impossible, then reconciliation is possible. Wealth is possible. Healing is possible. Transformation is possible. Not because the world changes first, but because you do. The seed does not argue with the soil. It simply contains the pattern within itself. Likewise, when you contain the fulfilled desire within your imagination, the world becomes the soil through which it grows. Do not dig up the seed with worry. Do not poison it with doubt. Water it with feeling. Many ask, how long will it take? That question reveals uncertainty. Time is only the interval between assumption and realization. Shorten the interval by deepening conviction. Live from the end, not toward it. To live from the end means you think from the wish fulfilled. Instead of thinking of your desire, you think from it. Instead of imagining it will happen, you imagine it has happened. This subtle shift changes everything, from longing to possession, from hoping to knowing, from striving to being. And being is the creative act. The world does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are conscious of being. Therefore, if you want a different life, become a different self. Within, the moment you accept that nothing is impossible, you free yourself from inherited limitations. You stop repeating family patterns. You stop echoing societal fear. You stop bowing to statistics. Statistics measure past outcomes. They do not govern individual assumption. You are not a statistic. You are a consciousness choosing a state. Choose boldly. Act boldly. Assume boldly. Let others discuss limitations. You remain inwardly faithful to your vision. You do not need their agreement. You need only your own consistency. Eventually, the world will reflect. Cut your inner transformation so clearly that even skeptics will call it luck, but you will know it was law. The law of assumption. Assume the best of yourself, assume the best of others, assume the best of life, and persist until assumption becomes fact. Act as if nothing is impossible, not because you are naive, but because you understand that imagination creates reality. You are not waiting for permission. You are not waiting for proof. You are the proof. And when you dare to live from the fulfilled desire, when you persist in the feeling that it is already yours, when you refuse to surrender to appearances, then impossibility dissolves like mist before the morning sun. Act as if nothing is impossible, and watch as the world agrees. Act as if the door is already open, even if your eyes still see walls. You must understand something deeply. You are not trying to force the universe to obey you. You are selecting a version of reality through identification. There are infinite states available, just as there are infinite radio frequencies. You do not create the station. You tune into it. When you tune into the state of impossibility, you hear its music. When you tune into the state of fulfillment, you hear a different song entirely. The dial is your attention. Where you place sustained attention, you dwell. Where you dwell, you become. And what you become, you express. If you continue to identify as the one who struggles, life will offer you scenarios that confirm struggle. If you begin to identify as the one who succeeds naturally, life will rearrange to validate that identity. This is not reward or punishment. It is correspondence. Acting as if nothing is impossible requires a radical shift in self-perception. Stop asking, can this happen? Start declaring inwardly, this is who I am now. The moment you assume a new identity, you step into a new state, and the state contains its own events, relationships, and outcomes. You are not chasing events. You are entering states. Consider how different you feel when you remember a past success versus when you remember a past failure. The body responds. The posture changes. The tone shifts. That is because memory is imagination directed toward the past. If imagination can produce real physical sensations about something that no longer exists, imagine what it can produce about something that has not yet appeared. Your nervous system does not wait for physical proof. It responds to imaginal conviction. So why use this power to rehearse defeat? Why spend hours imagining conversations where you are rejected, overlooked, misunderstood? That is acting as if impossibility is certain. And it is creative. Reverse it. Rehearse being respected. Rehearse being celebrated. Rehearse being chosen. Do it so often that it feels ordinary. When it feels ordinary within, it will feel ordinary without. The key is naturalness. If you imagine winning the lottery but still feel like someone who cannot pay rent, the state has not shifted. But if you imagine steady financial ease and feel a calm assurance replacing anxiety, you have moved states. The outer reflection may take time, but the inner shift is immediate, and the inner shift is the only cause. Do not underestimate subtle changes, a slight increase in confidence, a slight softening of fear, a slight expectation of good news. These are signs of a new state forming. Protect them. Guard your mind like sacred ground, not by suppressing thoughts forcefully, but by redirecting them gently. If doubt arises, do not wrestle with it. Replace it. If fear appears, do not condemn yourself. Choose again. Choice is continuous. Every moment you are either reinforcing the old story or writing the new one. There is no neutral ground. Even complain. Ing is creative. Even worry is creative. You are always imagining something. Make it deliberate. Act as if nothing is impossible. When you speak about your future, instead of saying, I hope things get better, say inwardly, things are aligning perfectly. Instead of asking, why does this always happen to me? Ask, how is this preparing me for greater expression? The questions you ask determine the states you enter. If you assume that everything works in your favor, even setbacks transform. What appears as delay becomes redirection. What appears as rejection becomes protection. The meaning you assign shapes the outcome. Meaning is power. Two people can experience the same event and walk away with different futures because they assigned different meanings. One says, this proves I am not good enough. The other says, this is refining me for something greater. One enters limitation. The other enters expansion. Act as if nothing is impossible by refusing to give negative meaning final authority. You are not denying facts. You are redefining them. Facts are fluid because they originate from states. Change the state and facts reorganize. There is a silence required for this practice, a stillness where you withdraw attention from outer noise and return to inner authorship. In that stillness, you imagine boldly, not anxiously, not desperately, boldly. You must feel worthy of what you imagine. Many block themselves not because they doubt possibility, but because they doubt themselves. They think, maybe it's possible, but not for me. That assumption is more powerful than any external barrier. So shift it. Affirm quietly, if it is imaginable, it is available to me. Do not compare timelines. Do not compare journeys. Comparison anchors you to another person's state. Your path is determined by your assumption alone. If you believe others are ahead of you, yay. Ow, enter the state of delay. If you believe everything unfolds perfectly for you, you enter the state of harmony. The world must echo whichever state you choose. Act as if nothing is impossible in small ways daily. Expect favorable parking. Expect kind interactions. Expect smooth resolutions. These small assumptions build momentum. They train your consciousness to default toward possibility instead of doubt. Imagination strengthens with use. The more you assume positively and witness results, the more natural it becomes. Soon, you stop reacting in panic because you understand the creative process. You know that what you see is only yesterday's state displayed. So when something undesirable appears, instead of saying this is permanent, you say this is passing. You revise it inwardly. You imagine the outcome you prefer. You refuse to emotionally cement what you do not desire. Emotion is the glue of manifestation. Detach from unwanted outcomes quickly. Do not feed them with dramatic storytelling. Do not gather witnesses to confirm your misfortune. The more you speak of problems, the more solid they feel. Silence them by imagining solutions. Act as if nothing is impossible when it comes to personal transformation. You are not your past reactions. You are not your history. You are not the labels given to you. All of that belongs to previous states. States can be abandoned. If you were shy, assume confidence. If you were fearful, assume boldness. If you were inconsistent, assume discipline. The past does not imprison you unless you keep rehearsing it. Drop the old name you gave yourself. Adopt the new one inwardly. See yourself responding differently in situations that once triggered you. See yourself calm where you once panicked. See yourself articulate where you once hesitated. Play the scene until it feels familiar. When the real life situation arises, will find yourself naturally embodying the new state. This is not self-improvement through effort. It is self-repetition through assumption. When you truly accept that nothing is impossible, you stop negotiating with mediocrity. You stop settling for partial fulfillment. You stop shrinking your dreams to match your current bank account, current job title, current social circle. Your present conditions are temporary expressions of past identity. They do not define your ceiling. Let your imagination be extravagant, not because you crave excess, but because you recognize boundlessness. The only limits are those you emotionally consent to. Withdraw consent. If you desire a thriving business, imagine clients thanking you. Imagine steady growth. Imagine expansion. Do not imagine the struggle phase endlessly. Do not romanticize difficulty. Difficulties arise when states conflict. Harmony arises when assumption is consistent. Consistency does not mean perfection. It means returning to the chosen state again and again until it feels like home. Home is not a place. It is a state of consciousness. Live from the home of fulfillment. When someone doubts you, do not internalize it. They are expressing their state, not your destiny. If you accept their doubt, it becomes yours. If you remain rooted in your assumption, their doubt dissolves. You do not need to convince others. Convince yourself. The outer world is slow to change because it is dense. Imagination is subtle and immediate. Trust the subtle more than the dense. The invisible is the blueprint of the visible. Act as if nothing is impossible when it comes to forgiveness. If you assume someone can never change, you lock them into that state in your world. If you assume reconciliation is possible, you open the door. Your perception shapes your experience of them. You are not controlling others. You are shifty. Ning your state regarding them. Everything flows from within. And as you persist, something remarkable happens. The line between imagination and reality begins to blur. What once felt like wishful thinking begins to feel inevitable. The anxiety fades. The urgency softens. You move with quiet expectancy. This quiet expectancy is power. It is not loud. It is not desperate. It is steady. From this steadiness, decisions become clearer. Opportunities become recognizable. Synchronicities increase. You begin to notice how events align without strain. What seemed random reveals hidden order. But it is not random. It is reflection. Every imaginal act seeks expression. You cannot imagine consistently without eventual manifestation. The only question is whether you will persist long enough to see it externalized. Act as if nothing is impossible, even when the bridge of incidents unfolds in unexpected ways. The path may not resemble your original idea. Do not resist the unfolding. The subconscious arranges events intelligently. Your role is not to dictate the steps, but to remain faithful to the end. Trust the end. Live from the end. And when the mind attempts to return to what if it fails, gently replace it with it is already accomplished. Repeat until the new statement feels more believable than the old fear. Believability grows through repetition and emotional acceptance. You are not trying to convince the world. You are impressing your subconscious. And whatever is impressed upon it must find expression in form. The subconscious accepts what you feel to be true, not what you occasionally wish were true. It yields to dominance, not to fleeting desire. So when you act as if nothing is impossible, you are establishing dominance over doubt. You are choosing which inner voice becomes law. Most people visit the state of fulfillment, but live in the state of lack. They meditate for 10 minutes and worry for 10 hours. They affirm in the morning and complain in the afternoon. They imagine abundance and then check their bank account with anxiety. That divided loyalty weakens the impression. Undivided assumption is power. You must decide which story you will remain faithful to. The story of limitation or the story of expansion. You cannot plant seeds of greatness while watering weeds of fear. When you truly act as if nothing is impossible, your reactions change first. That is the earliest evidence. You notice that situations that once disturbed you now feel smaller. You notice that delays no longer provoke panic. You sense an inner stability growing, as though something unseen is already settled. That inner settlement is the beginning of external change. You must learn to enjoy the imaginal act itself, not as a tool alone, but as a reality. When you close your eyes and enter the scene of fulfillment, do not treat it as rehearsal. Treat it as participation. Feel the textures, hear the tones, sense the environment. Let it feel like memory rather than fantasy. Memory carries certainty. If you can remember a past embarrassment and feel its emotional charge years later, you can imagine a future triumph and feel its emotional power now. The mind does not discriminate between directions of time. It responds to vividness and feeling. Act as if nothing is impossible in your self-talk throughout the day. When a challenge arises, instead of immediately searching for reasons it cannot work, ask yourself, what would I think if this were already resolved? Then think that way. Speak that way internally. This is living from the end in motion. It is subtle, but powerful. For example, if you desire harmonious relationships, stop preparing arguments in your mind. Stop anticipating misundo. Restandings instead, assume clarity and kindness. Assume respect. Walk into interactions expecting goodwill. Expectation shapes perception. Perception shapes response. Response shapes outcome. If you expect conflict, you unconsciously brace for it. Your tone tightens, your expressions shift, and the other person responds to that subtle tension. But if you expect harmony, you relax. You soften, you become approachable, and harmony meets you. The outer exchange mirrors the inner stance. To act as if nothing is impossible is to remove the ceiling from your identity. You stop saying, "This is just who I am." Instead, you say, "I am choosing who I am becoming." Identity is not fixed. It is fluid. It is selected. You have selected every version of yourself you have ever been through repeated assumption. Now select deliberately. If you want to be decisive, imagine making decisions with ease. If you want to be influential, imagine your words carrying weight. If you want to be creative, imagine ideas flowing effortlessly. The brain will begin to build neural pathways consistent with the state you repeatedly enter. Imagination is not escaping reality. It is constructing it. Do not underestimate the power of quiet conviction. You do not need to broadcast your new assumption. You do not need to defend it. Protect it inwardly. Let it root deeply before exposing it to external opinions. There is a gestation period for every manifestation. Just as a seed develops beneath the soil unseen, your assumption is forming patterns beyond your awareness. Impatience disrupts the process. Anxiety shakes the root. But calm expectancy nourishes growth. When you feel tempted to check for evidence, return to the feeling instead. Evidence follows feeling, not the other way around. You must also release the need to understand every step. The rational mind demands explanation, but the creative process transcends linear logic. Many of the greatest shifts in your life occurred through unexpected sequences. You did not plan them consciously, yet they unfolded naturally. That natural unfolding is the bridge of incidents set in motion by assumption. If you truly believe nothing is impossible, you stop being surprised by good fortune. You begin to regard success as normal. You begin to see doors opening as natural consequences of your state. Normalizing your desire is crucial. If you put your desire on a pedestal, you create distance. If you treat it as extraordinary, you subtly declare yourself separate from it. Instead, make it ordinary in imagination. Live with it inwardly so often that it feels like daily life. When it feels normal within, it cannot remain absent without. Act as if nothing is impossible when facing memories of failure. Revise them. Close your eyes and replay the event the way you wish it had happened. Change the outcome. Hear different words. See a different response. Feel empowerment instead of defeat. This is not denial of history. It is transformation of its emotional residue. By revising the past in imagination, you alter the state you carry into the future. You remove the emotional charge that keeps repeating similar experiences. You free yourself from cyclical patterns. Nothing is impossible when you understand that time itself bends to assumption. You are not trapped in a linear progression of cause and effect. The cause is always in consciousness. Change the cause now, and future effects shift accordingly. Even probabilities adjust. When you stop believing in fixed outcomes, you open space for extraordinary ones. Act as if nothing is impossible in your physical posture. Stand differently. Walk differently. Carry yourself as one who expects favorable outcomes. The body both influences and reflects the state. When you move with quiet assurance, you reinforce the identity of capability. This is embodiment. You are not merely thinking differently. You are being differently. Being precedes having. If you desire recognition, become internally recognized. If you desire security, become internally secure. If you desire admiration, become internally self-approving. The outer applause cannot compensate for inner rejection, but inner approval naturally attracts outer acknowledgement. Do not wait for validation to feel valuable. Feel valuable and validation arrives. When challenges intensify, remind yourself that persistence in assumption often brings old patterns to the surface for release. It may feel like resistance, but it is transition. Do not interpret turbulence as failure. Interpret it as movement. The moment before breakthrough often resembles pressure. Remain steady. The world reflects the average of your dominant assumptions. Occasional doubt does not undo persistent faith, but repeated doubt weakens impact. Therefore, return quickly to your chosen state whenever you drift. Return without self-criticism. Self-criticism is another form of impossibility. Forgive yourself instantly for moments of doubt. Re-enter the state of fulfillment as though you never left it. The subconscious does not punish. It responds to repetition. Repetition builds reality. Imagine the version of you who already lives the life you desire. How do they think? How do they interpret setbacks? How do they speak about the future? Step into that perspective now, not gradually. Now, you are not climbing toward that self, you are selecting that self. There are countless versions of you existing as states. The one you occupy becomes your experience. If you believe transformation must be slow, it will be. If you believe transformation can be immediate, it can be. Belief governs speed. Act as if nothing is impossible, even when others project their fears onto you. Smile inwardly and remain unmoved. Their projection cannot penetrate unless you accept it. Your assumption is sovereign. Sovereignty begins in thought. You are the authority of your inner world. No one else can think for you unless you yield attention. Guard that authority. Direct it intentionally. The moment you feel yourself slipping into resignation, pause. Breathe. Ask, what would the fulfilled version of me assume right now? Then assume it again and again. This repeated redirection reshapes identity. Identity reshapes experience. And as you continue in this discipline, you begin to feel a subtle expansion, a sense that life is not happening to you but through you, that circumstances are not fixed obstacles but movable pieces responding to an unseen design. You begin to notice that what once seemed unlikely starts appearing with ease. Conversations align, ideas emerge at the right moment, encounters feel orchestrated. What others call coincidence, you recognize as correspondence. Because when you act as if nothing is impossible, you are no longer reacting to reality as something separate from you. You are moving within it as its quiet architect, selecting states deliberately, dwelling in them faithfully, and watching as form rearranges itself around the silent conviction you refuse to surrender. Silent conviction is not stubbornness, it is alignment. It is the refusal to contradict within yourself what you have already accepted as true in imagination. When you contradict your assumption through fear, you divide your creative power. But when your thoughts, feelings, and inner speech move in the same direction, reality must eventually echo that harmony. You are always moving through states, whether consciously or unconsciously. The one who acts as if nothing is impossible chooses though. Say states deliberately, they do not drift into despair. They do not accidentally inhabit doubt for long. They notice the shift and correct it gently. Correction is creative. The moment you notice yourself thinking, this is too hard, replace it with, this is unfolding perfectly. When you catch yourself imagining rejection, replace it with acceptance. The speed of your correction determines the speed of your transformation. Do not wait for mood to change before assuming greatness. Mood follows assumption. If you wait to feel inspired before imagining boldly, you remain dependent on circumstance. Instead, assume boldly first. Inspiration follows obedience to the chosen state. Many believe that imagination is passive. It is not. It is participation in the unseen dimension of reality. Every imaginal act plants a seed. Some sprout quickly, others take time. But none are wasted. Nothing imagined with feeling disappears. It either manifests externally or transforms you internally. Sometimes the transformation within is the greater miracle. When you act as if nothing is impossible, you loosen the grip of old narratives. You stop identifying with stories of scarcity. You stop telling yourself that success belongs to others. You stop assuming that happiness must be earned through struggle. You allow yourself to receive. Receiving requires belief in worthiness, and worthiness is not achieved through performance. It is accepted through assumption. Assume you are worthy of love, and you begin to notice love where you once overlooked it. Assume you are worthy of opportunity, and you begin to recognize doors you once ignored. The world did not change first. Your perception did. Perception filters reality, and perception flows from identity. If you identify as someone for whom nothing is impossible, you interpret obstacles as temporary. You interpret delays as preparation. You interpret mistakes as redirection. You stop personalizing every setback as proof of inadequacy. This shift is subtle but profound. You begin to live with expectancy rather than apprehension. You wake up anticipating favorable outcomes. You speak about your future with certainty rather than hesitation. Your tone changes, your energy softens. You are no longer bracing for disappointment. Expectation is silent prayer. What you expect with calm conviction has a way of appearing, not because you demanded it, but because you aligned with it. Act as if nothing is impossible when facing large dreams. Do not shrink them to match current evidence. If you desire expansion, see it vividly. Imagine the larger space, the greater influence, the amplified impact. Let the scale of your imagination stretch you. Expansion in imagination precedes expansion in form. Do not fear dreaming beyond your present capacity. Capacity grows when you assume it must. Skills develop when identity requires them. Resources appear when purpose is assumed as fulfilled. The path often reveals itself only after commitment. When you commit inwardly to the end result, steps emerge naturally. You meet people unexpectedly. You encounter ideas at the right moment. You feel impulses guiding you gently. Follow those impulses without overanalyzing them. They are often the bridge unfolding beneath your feet. Overanalysis belongs to doubt. Trust belongs to assumption. If you find yourself questioning, what if I fail? Respond with, what if I succeed beyond expectation? Let your imagination explore success with the same intensity it once explored fear. Feel the relief, the gratitude, the quiet pride. Gratitude accelerates manifestation. When you feel grateful in advance, you signal completion. You move from desire into fulfillment. Emotionally, and emotion seals the assumption. Do not wait for outer proof before celebrating inwardly. Celebrate now. Feel thankful now. Speak internally as though it is already accomplished. This is not pretending. It is selecting. Selection determines experience. When you walk into a room, assume respect. When you start a project, assume success. When you begin a relationship, assume harmony. Even if past experiences contradict this, do not let history dictate possibility. History is not destiny. It is only previous assumption expressed. Release allegiance to old results. You are not required to repeat them. You are free in this moment to assume differently. Freedom lies in awareness. The moment you become aware that your inner world shapes your outer world, you are no longer helpless. You may not control every event consciously, but you influence the pattern through sustained assumption. Pattern is formed through repetition. Repeat the feeling of fulfillment daily, not with strain but with ease. Make it a familiar mental dwelling place. Return to it during idle moments. Let it become your default state. Soon, you will notice something extraordinary. Your reactions to external triggers weaken. Situations that once felt threatening now feel manageable. You carry an inner anchor, a steadiness that is not shaken easily. That steadiness is evidence of state change. From that new state, decisions shift. You choose differently. You speak differently. You respond differently. And those differences ripple outward into visible change. Act as if nothing is impossible when dealing with time. Do not pressure yourself with deadlines rooted in anxiety. Instead, assume timely fulfillment. Trust that everything arrives at the perfect intersection of readiness and alignment. Impatience often signals hidden doubt. Replace impatience with calm assurance. Say inwardly, "It is done. I am simply walking through the unfolding." This perspective removes urgency and introduces peace. Peace is powerful. A peaceful assumption carries more creative force than a desperate plea. Desperation implies lack. Peace implies possession. Live from possession. Even in small matters, practice this law. If you misplace something, assume it will be found quickly. If you await a response, assume it will be favorable. These small experiments build confidence in your creative authority. Confidence strengthens assumption. As confidence grows, you dare to assume bigger outcomes. You stop limiting yourself to what feels safe. You stop apologizing for your vision. You accept that your imagination is not random, it is guidance. Desire itself is evidence of possibility. You do not desire what is fundamentally impossible. Desire is an invitation to enter a new state. When you feel a deep longing, it is because a version of you already exists in that fulfilled condition. You are being drawn toward it. Respond boldly. Enter that version now in imagination. Walk as they walk. Think as they think. Interpret life as they would interpret it. The more frequently you occupy that state, the less foreign it feels. And once it feels natural, it becomes inevitable. Inevitability grows from familiarity. Make success familiar. Make joy familiar. Make abundance familiar. Familiarity dissolves resistance. When resistance dissolves, flow begins. Flow carries you into circumstances that reflect your assumption. You will find yourself saying, "This feels right." Trust that feeling. It is alignment with your chosen state. Even when you encounter contrast, do not retreat. Contrast sharpens clarity. It reveals where you still hold hidden doubts. Instead of reacting emotionally, observe and revise inwardly. Revision is mastery. Each time you revise, you strengthen your authority over experience. You prove to yourself that you are not at the mercy of appearances. You are the source from which appearances arise. And as you deepen in this understanding, you realize that nothing external ever truly held power over you. The power was always in assumption, always in identity, always in the silent agreement you made with a particular state. Now you choose differently. You choose expansion over contraction, faith over fear, fulfillment over lack. You wake each day not asking, "What will happen to me?" but declaring inwardly, "I know who I am being today." And the version of you who believes nothing is impossible continues to think boldly, feel deeply, assume confidently, and walk through the world with the quiet certainty that reality is not fixed, but fluid, not final, but responsive, not distant, but intimately shaped by the unseen convictions you nurture within your own consciousness moment by moment. So understand this clearly and without compromise. The only thing that has ever stood between you and the life you desire is the story you accepted as true. Not your background, not your mistakes, not the opinions of others, not the economy, not timing. Your assumption. The world you experience is not a fixed structure you must endure. It is a living mirror responding to who you believe yourself to be. The moment you accept that nothing is impossible, you step out of survival and into authorship. You stop reacting to life and begin directing it, quietly, inwardly, powerfully. This is your responsibility and your privilege. No one else can assume for you. No one else can occupy your state. No one else can choose your identity. You must decide whether you will continue rehearsing limitation or begin embodying fulfillment. You must decide whether your imagination will serve fear or serve destiny, because it will serve something. If you persist in the feeling that you are overlooked, life will confirm it. If you persist in the feeling that you are chosen, life will confirm that too. The law is impartial. It responds to conviction. So let this be the turning point. Refuse to consult appearances for permission. Refuse to bow to temporary facts. Refuse to describe yourself by old outcomes. Stand inwardly in the identity of the fulfilled one. Feel it. Live from it. Think from it. Speak from it. Not occasionally, but consistently. When doubt arises, return to your assumption. When fear whispers, return to your assumption. When delay tempts you to quit, return to your assumption. Persist until the feeling of fulfillment becomes more natural than the memory of lack. That is power. And when you live this way, when you truly act as if nothing is impossible, you will not need to chase miracles. You will become the evidence of them. Doors will open where none were visible. Solutions will appear where there were only questions. Strength will rise where there was once hesitation, not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. And once you change at the level of identity, once you claim boldly, calmly, and without apology that nothing is impossible for the one who assumes the end, then reality must rearrange itself to reflect that decision. From this moment forward, choose your state deliberately. Guard your imagination fiercely. Refuse smallness. Refuse limitation. Refuse the lie of impossibility. Stand in the knowing that what you can vividly assume and faithfully feel is already yours in principle, and what is accepted inwardly must in time appear outwardly. Act as if nothing is impossible, and let your life become undeniable proof